Mr. Vio, would you please lead us in a pledge of allegiance?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, moving on to approval of this evening's agenda. Do we have a motion for this item?
I'll make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Motion by Mr. Vio. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Ms. Lara. Is there any discussion before we call for the vote? Hearing none, Ms. Barr, please call for the vote.
Mr. Daniels,
Yep.
Mr. Jennings,
Yes.
Martinez,
Yes.
Mayor Bryant,
Yes.
Mr. Beal,
Yes,
Ms. Mays,
Yes.
Ms. Laura,
Yes.
passes.
Okay, moving on to new business. The only item we have this evening is a letter of engagement for consideration by council from Miss Karen Goldman. Do we have a motion for this item?
I'll make a motion to accept the letter of engagement for the purpose of discussion.
I'll second it.
A motion by Mr. Daniels and a second by Ms. Lara. Ms. Goldman, are you in attendance this evening?
I am.
Do you mind giving us an overview of the services that you may be able to provide to the city, ma'am?
I'd be happy to. Thank you very much for inviting me, and I want to also thank you for considering me to assist in the recall petition process and perhaps an upcoming recall election. My responsibility will be to provide any kind of assistance that may be needed to the deputy city clerk, to the city clerk throughout this entire process. That would include assistance in helping to check the signatures on the petition, creating, if the petition should turn out to be sufficient, creating an election calendar, which the council will be able to use as they set the election date, help with all aspects of printing ballots, having training judges, hiring judges, counting, basically anything that is required. I need to tell you, I have a lot of experience in this area, not just with recall elections, but I certainly have a lot of experience there. But I've run all kinds of elections. I've done everything from actually run the election to just provide the kind of assistance that I anticipate that Walsenburg will be needing now. So I feel like I do have the qualifications that will help you along. The other thing I'd like to have you know is that I had spent over 20 years as a municipal clerk in Colorado. And now that I am officially retired from a 40-hour-a-week job, I work with the Colorado Municipal League and the Municipal Clerks Association, and I help to train other clerks around the state in how to conduct elections. So I'm available to answer any questions that you may have, both about myself and about the process.
So Mayor, if I might, I would like to clarify for Ms. Goldman's sake, as well as those in attendance. When I had the initial conversation with some other officials, both with the Municipal League and for guidance, I misinterpreted some information that I'd received, and the indication was Ms. Goldman was an attorney. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend you that way, Ms. Goldman. Joking aside, but I did want to clarify that she certainly comes, as she indicated, with a great deal of expertise, but I misinterpreted some information that I received to include attorney in that description. So obviously, Mr. Hyatt, the city attorney, has also reviewed this agreement, and what you have in front of you is perfectly acceptable with him this evening. So
Thank you. Ms. Goldman, how would the services that you may be able to provide to the city differ from those that are already available through the municipal clerks advisor program that CML offers?
The Municipal Clerk Advisor Program, which quite honestly is myself. I manage and direct the program, is primarily a mentoring program. It's designed to assist municipal clerks work through a very simple type of, if they have a concern, it could be a concern about working with an employee, working with their elected officials. It's more of a mentoring type of and support situation. This really is more of a walking people through the entire recall process. So it is quite different.
Thank you. And then I just had one last question, if you don't mind, just to make sure everybody's crystal clear on this point. You'll be serving in an advisory capacity to our city clerk and deputy city clerk, not individual elected officials that are subject to this recall, correct, ma'am?
Well, that is correct. However, if they have any questions about the process that you are the city clerk cannot answer, I'm more than happy to step in and direct them in the right, but I won't serve as any kind of advisor to any of them. My role is purely administrative. As was clearly said, I'm not an attorney, and I can't tell you how many times I remind municipal clerks that I am not the attorney.
Thank you for clarifying that, Ms. Goldman. Ms. Mays, did you have anything this evening?
I'll wait.
Mr. Martinez, do you have anything this evening?
This has been cleared with Mr. Hyatt, I hear, is that correct?
Yes.
This, I think I understand your question. So we had the conversation with Mr. Hyatt, who has reviewed the agreement. We modified 2 words in it. So we appreciate Ms. Goldman's thoroughness in regards to that. He pointed out that in his opinion, based upon Ms. Goldman's, and I'll quote, "In fact, a person with 30 years of experience as a municipal clerk will have far more expertise than most attorneys in this area." So Mr. Hyatt is supportive of the city's attempt to support both the deputy as well as the city clerk in this process.
Thank you. That's all.
Mr. Daniels, do you have anything this evening?
I don't at this moment. I may later as the questions continue.
Yes, sir. Ms. Laura?
Okay, so I see what your fee is. Do you, since you've done this a little bit, what is your time frame? It's all the way through the counting of the ballot. Should there be an election, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, and how many hours, because this is going to cost the citizens of Walsenburg, how many hours do you think you will be spending on this on average? Or can you kind of give us a ballpark of what maybe the citizens are looking to pay?
Oh, yes. Well, first of all, the first thing you need to know that I am very inexpensive compared to a lot of firms that do this kind of work. I always like to tell people that I don't do this for the money. I do this because I want to be useful and to be of assistance. The fee or the total amount of money that I will charge, and I will probably be the kind of the least of your costs, is pretty much determined by what kind of election you would hold. If you hold a mail ballot election where we'd be counting ballots prior to the actual election day, and my presence, I will be there in person to oversee the signature verification and the ballot counting process. That will mean there'll be more cost than if you just do a polling place election. The decision as to what kind of election you want to hold is entirely up to the elected officials. I think, and I will tell you, you are absolutely right that these special elections are not inexpensive. There's, ballot printing costs. I don't really know how many, if you do a mail ballot election, I don't know exactly how many active registered electors you would have, but the per ballot costs these days for printing and mailing, that kind of thing is on average between $4 and $5 per voter. That's not per person who votes, that's per ballot that comes out. I wish I could give you an exact amount. in terms of hours, I can tell you that in previous elections, probably my total fee has run somewhere anywhere between $3,000 and $5,000.
And that's just your fee. That's not cost of ballots and all of that.
That's correct. That's just your payment to me.
Okay, let's see. So being that council members are, I guess, supposed to refer to the deputy clerk or the city clerk, is it possible for us to go? I mean, you know, I guess we can just go to the deputy clerk with all the questions and then he can refer us to you. Is it possible to get an email address for questions that we might have that they can't answer?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And generally the way I like to respond to questions is that if one person, and I did this when I was city clerk, if one of my elected officials asked me a question, I responded and I made sure all the other city council members knew, number one, what the question was and what my answer was, because communication in this kind of process, as with any kind of process, is key. And the deputy city clerk already has my email contact.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. I might have another couple questions, but. Oh,
Mr. Jennings, do you have anything for us this evening?
No, my questions were answered.
Thank you. Mr. Veal?
I just have something I want to say. I think this will be great having her aboard. Our clerk is kind of new. He's never done this. And he's very busy, and this will take some of the pressure off him because he's got to still do day-to-day activities. That's all I have to say.
I agree. And, you know, I think getting a third party in here that's as unbiased as they can be, Ms. Goldman wouldn't know any of us elected officials up here from anybody else on the street. I think that'll be extremely valuable and help instill some trust in the process. And good thing about Ms. Goldman serving in the public sector for so long, there's a rich paper trail of the positive work that you've done throughout the state. And I've had the opportunity to review some of your rulings and other recalls that have taken place in other municipalities. And the impression that I was left with is that you're fair, basically called balls and strikes, really professional, and found rulings going to both sides, especially when it came to petition hearings, as far as recalls being upheld and others being thrown out. There certainly wasn't any pattern going one way or the other, but I agree with you, Mr. Veal. I had a question for Ms. Davis. Normally in our municipal elections, we have the Huerfano County clerk coordinate them. Is that an option that can be used in this instance?
And I'll concede to Ms. Goldman's expertise, but it's my understanding that the city's buying and paying and managing this election. That it's hopefully depending upon the process that you do, identify if we need to borrow, rent, lease, polling spot kinds of things, and or boxes, then we might be able to utilize some of their resources from that standpoint. But correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Goldman, it's the city's responsibility.
Yes, the county clerk is really only obligated to assist municipalities when they have their elections on the November election dates, whether it's either the general election in even numbered years or what they call the off-year coordinated elections in odd numbered years. Now, that is not to say that the county clerk could run this election for Walsenburg. You would still be charged, and I don't know if the fee would be any higher or any lower, but they would certainly charge you for their staff time, for anything they use, and it's totally up to them. So I mean, if that's a question you want to ask, certainly go ahead and see what your county clerk has to say. It would be possible, I mean, they have by law, they are required to provide a voter list. In fact, I'm working on another election for another community, and they're going to provide their use of their 24-hour drop box because the election is going to be held as a mail ballot election. They're going to provide in-office ballot boxes, other types of things. So it's kind of a hybrid, but again, they don't have to run this election for you. And depending upon what else is going on in their office, the county clerk may choose not to do that.
Thank you, Mel. Ms. Mays, did you have anything?
So I just would like to follow up on the approximately $5 per ballot. In the 2021 municipal election, when I was elected to this seat, we had like a 43% turnout, which was approximately almost 2,300 ballots that's what was on, that's the number that they were using. So using kind of a conservative $2,250 at $5 each, we're looking at like $11,250 just based off those raw numbers, just for the ballot piece of it. Is that correct?
Possibly. What we're really looking at is an apples to oranges comparison. And let me explain why. In a November election, the cost to the individual participating entities depends on a number of things. It depends on the number of entities that are participating. It depends on how many ballots are sent out. It depends upon whether you have a ballot issue and need a ballot issue notice. There's all kinds of factors, and those vary from election to election. In a coordinated election, you are sharing the total cost with other participating entities who also have something on the ballot at the same time. Now, in an odd year election, because they're not necessarily statewide elections, they're less expensive than if you were to do something in an even year election. So I think it's fair, I couldn't say with any certainty that you are absolutely correct, but I think that what you're looking at is probably a fair assessment.
And you had mentioned something about a polling place election versus a ballot election.
Mail ballot election, yes.
So my concern with that is we have our demographics of this town. I'm not sure that voters who wanted to, everybody could make it to a polling place. So that would be something that I would ask all of council to consider, is who our population are, and if that is really a way to get most voters, to the ballot box if there is indeed an election.
And like I said, that's absolutely up to you. Now that the county clerks run all of their elections by mail, I think that a mail ballot election is sometimes an expected form of an election. I will say that in a polling place election, there is also the opportunity to vote by absentee ballot. They look exactly the same. The difference is, in a mail ballot election, you don't have to request your ballot. In a polling place election using an absentee ballot, you actually have to make a formal request. But again, the decision as to how you want to run your elections is totally up to you.
So we have an election on the books for November of 2023. Is there a time frame that if there is an election, that this has to be done before that November election?
Yes, there is. In state statute, once you go through the process and you get to the point of setting the election, you have in state statute, you have a requirement that election can be held no sooner than a particular number of days from the date you set the election. They call it the call for the election. So there's a minimum number of days and there's a maximum number of days. In a recall election, all of the timelines are truncated. In other words, they're a lot shorter than any other citizen initiated process, whether it be a referendum or an initiative. And the reason for that is, once the citizens decide that people should be considered for removal, then you don't want to delay it as you can. There's also a statement that says that if a recall is to be scheduled within a certain number of days of a regular municipal election, which would not be the case next year, then it's held as part of the regular election. That's a very long-winded way of saying, I don't believe you can wait until November.
But it has to be within a certain amount of days.
Right, I believe
From
it's
that November election.
right. I believe that when you set the election date, the earliest date is 60 days out and the latest date is 90 days out.
Do you have anything else, Ms. Mays?
So, and I don't know if you're in the position to answer this question. So the petitions have been put out, but I don't know what you call them, replacement candidates. When is that list required to come out?
The day after the city council sets the date of the election, nomination petitions will be available to be picked up and circulated. They're then circulated for a period of 20 days. Then it's the same, they're the same petitions as in your regular election. It's the same number of days to circulate, the same number of days to cure the petition. And then that's where people can decide if they want to be what I call successor candidates.
And that's the same eligibility that we had to meet.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mr. Martinez, did you have anything, sir?
I don't have anything at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Daniels?
No, all my questions have been answered. Assuming that the only question tonight that's going to be addressed is whether or not we're going to retain her, and we're not going to address these other questions that came up tonight. That's all I have then.
Yes, sir. Ms. Laura?
I was wondering, and I don't mean to be negative or anything, but have you spoken to the positive, can't think of the name, positive committee for Walsenburg regarding any of this? As they have referred actually to some of your CML policies, like this one. Have they contacted you at all?
Are you speaking to me?
Yes.
I at the request of the deputy city clerk, I responded to a request that they made today. I did that by email, and that's the only contact I've had.
Okay, so there won't be a conflict of interest, correct?
I don't know who I saw their names on the petition. I have no idea who these people are.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Jennings, did you have anything?
I have no further questions.
Mr. Vio?
And
If there's nothing further from council, we got a motion and a second on the floor. Council feel like they have enough information to make a decision here? Okay, Ms. Barr, would you please call for the vote?
Can I just say one thing? I would actually like to give Rick an opportunity as a deputy clerk to say something if he would like to.
Mr. Colander, do you care to say anything, sir?
Just that we need her desperately.
I mean, he's the one that's impacted, so I wanted to hear from Rick. Thank you,
Yeah,
Rick.
no, that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Ms.
And
Barr?
thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Absolutely.
Are
Barr?
citizens' comments allowed?
Excuse me, Ms. Barr, did you have anything? And Ms. Davis, did you have anything?
I'd just like to say the reason that we wanted to initiate this was because of the opportunity in our community. We wanted to ensure that we were going to get this right. And as Mr. Vigil pointed out, this is not something that we want to take lightly, nor is it something that we do on a regular basis. So there has been some issues and some shortcomings that have been identified with personnel here at City Hall. which I think we all take offense to, because we do certainly try to do the best job that we can, given the situation. So in an attempt to remediate and remove those thoughts, that we felt this was the best approach we needed to take. So I would encourage this city council to seriously consider this and approve Ms. Goldman.
Can I ask, like, who, so I hear mixed messages that, you know, I mean, I keep hearing that it's our deputy clerk, Rick, and he seems to be the head person, but I hear, like, I've heard that it should be Stephanie, our city clerk, and that we're breaking whatever, the law, we're not following proper protocol by Rick doing it versus Stephanie doing it. Do you know, or like, is there any, like, thing that says it has to be the deputy clerk or it has to be the city clerk?
Oh, sorry.
No, go right ahead.
No, the answer is no. There is nothing that I mean, the deputy city clerk serves as the city clerk in the absence of the city clerk, given the fact that your city clerk is an elected official and isn't present 40 hours a week. It makes perfect sense for the deputy city clerk to be the point person on all of this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Goldman. Is there anything further from council before we call for the vote? Hearing none, Ms. Barr, can you please call for the vote?
Mr. Beal,
Yes.
Ms. Mays,
Yes.
Ms. Laura,
Yes.
Mr. Daniels.
Yep.
Mayor Bryant,
Yes.
Mr. Martinez,
Yes.
Mr. Jennings.
Yes.
Okay, moving on to mayor and council comments, directions.
Thank you, Ms.
and
Goldman.
Reports.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Veal, do you have anything for us this evening? Mr. Jennings?
Not tonight.
Ms. Laura?
No, nothing at this point.
Mr. Daniels?
I have nothing.
Martinez?
Nope.
Ms. Mays?
No, thank you.
And I have no comments this evening. I would request a motion to adjourn. Motion
Second.
by Mr. Veal, second by Ms. Mays. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Good evening, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.